ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अद्य भवतां सर्वेषाम् अस्यां व्याख्यानमालायां द्वादशे व्याख्याने हार्दम् अभिनन्दनं स्वागतं व्याहरामि। वाको वाक्य सदोनुग्रह भाषण व्याख्यानमाला इति अस्माकं व्याख्यानमाला जायमाना। अस्य द्वादशं व्याख्यानमिदम्। अस्मिन् व्याख्याने अस्माकं वक्तारः डॉक्टर राजेश्वर मुखर्जी महाभागाः। एते कैवल्यधाम शोधसंस्थानतः महाराष्ट्रस्थ लोनावाला इति स्थाने तत्र सहायकनिदेशकत्वेन पुनश्च तत्रैव अध्यक्षपदत्वेन कार्यं कुर्वाणाः सन्ति। महोदयानां वयं हार्दम् अभिनन्दनं स्वागतवचांसि व्याहरामः। पुनश्च येऽपि प्रतिभागिनः अत्र साक्षात् अस्माकं कार्यक्रमे पुनश्च यूट्यूब् माध्यमेन संयुक्ताः सन्ति, तेषामपि हार्दम् अभिनन्दनं स्वागतवचांसि। स्वागतम्। इदानीम् अद्यतन यः अस्माकं यद् व्याख्यानं तस्य विषयोऽपि अत्यन्तं दिव्यः। वेदान्त केसरीयः स्वामी विवेकानन्दः, तेषां गर्जनविषये अस्माकम् अत्र पुरतः डॉक्टर राजेश्वर मुखर्जी महाभागाः प्रस्तोष्यन्ति। तर्हि आदौ तावत् अहं निवेदयामि डॉक्टर सुरेन्द्रमोहन मिश्र महाभागान् यत्ते कृपया अस्माकं वक्तृमहोदयानाम् अभिनन्दनं पुनः किञ्चित् परिचयं निवेदयितुम् अत्र डॉक्टर सुरेन्द्रमोहन मिश्र महाभागाः। ओम्।
Should I start?
No. Let me speak a few words. So, Namaskar to Dr. Mukherjee and everyone present here. Om Akhandam Satchidananda Mavang Manasa Gocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Asraye Bhishta Siddhaye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. अस्यां बाको वाक्य सदोनुग्रह व्याख्यानमालायां अद्य वयं स्वागती कुर्मः डॉक्टर राजेश्वर मुखोपाध्याय महोदयान्, ये खलु वङ्गीयाः सम्प्रति महाराष्ट्रेषु कैवल्यधाम्नि लोनावला स्थाने तत्र योग रिसर्च इंस्टिट्यूट वर्तते, तत्र उपनिदेशकपदम् अलङ्कुर्वाणाः सन्ति। ते संस्कृतम् उपनिषदः दर्शनशास्त्राणि तत्र कृतभूरि परिश्रमाः सम्प्रति तत्र शोध संस्थाने यद् वर्तते फिलोसफिको लिटररी विभागः, दार्शनिक साहित्यिक विभागः वर्तते, तस्य विभाग मुख्याः अपि च संपूर्ण संस्थायाः उपनिदेशकाः तत्र वर्तन्ते। अहं बहुपूर्वम् एकवारं तत्र गतवान्। Long back I once went to Lonavala, Kaivalya. It's such a peaceful atmosphere. Nobody of us, because we are living beings, we have not seen heaven. If you want to see heaven, then you must go to Lonavala and find the peace of heaven there. It's almost like you can say air-conditioned atmosphere, encircled by hills, and you will find pleasure in also climbing up a small hillock there, and really one finds so much bliss in that atmosphere, and really that's the place for practicing of yoga, and that is attached to Ministry of Human Resource Development. And Dr. Mukherjee is there. There's a few days ago I came in contact with him, and then I'm very happy that he is here for our university. I welcome him on behalf of our university and our Department of Sanskrit, Pali and Prakrit. Here our head for 15 long years, from 70 to 85, was Professor Gopika Aman Bhattacharya. He created this particular association of students and teachers, researchers, and after he passed away in 86, 7th of July, then his students named the association as Dr. Gopika Aman Bhattacharya Samskrita Sodha Parishad. So I welcome Dr. Mukherjee to our association and to our department and to our university and Kurukshetra. And Swami Vivekananda, I must tell a few sentences that see, Swami Vivekananda was very close to Haryana. How? Maybe you may not be informed about this. In 1893, he came twice to Haryana, you can say the western side of Haryana, the northwest side of Haryana, that is Mahendragarh, and there is a hill called Dhosi. That's a hillock actually. Hillock, that's actually a volcanic crater. Volcanic crater where long generations of rishis they had lived, and he came there, and just 20 kilometers away from there was the Khetri king, and actually he was his friend. He got the name Vivekananda from his friend king. Also he got the robes, the robes with which he went to Chicago to have his, you can say, public speech for the first time in that kind of audience. He went to Chicago, and then Swami Vivekananda, we know the lion of Vedanta roars. Really, he was the lion, and Vedanta also is the lion's mouth, because when the Vedas end, then the Vedanta starts. The Veda is knowledge. Literally, Veda also means knowledge. When knowledge ends, then practice starts. So when that Swami Vivekananda, whatever he did in the world, whatever he spoke, his works are there in his life and was in 8 volumes published by Ramakrishna Mission. And the missionary I have been Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture, and also the place where Swami Vivekananda was living, and Dakshineshwar, and all these places are now great tirthas for humanity, because Swami Vivekananda spoke of the Hindu world, the Hindu vision, but he spoke for the whole humanity. And that's how Swami Vivekananda is very close to India, also very close to the world minds, because those who want to know what Hinduism is, they must know Swami Vivekananda. And in that respect, I invite Dr. Mukherjee to Haryana and Kurukshetra, and when Corona time ends, then I shall request him to once physically come to Kurukshetra to have a look at the great tirtha that is Kurukshetra here. And Kurukshetra also is a great name, Swami Vivekananda in his lectures. So thank you all, and all people gathered here from there on before university, Professor Mittal and Bhargavi and other people, Anita from the Institute, and Pallavi Gaikwad, Ananda Bharadwaj, Senapati Dandana from Odisha, Dr. Sailendra and Swarna Chandan, and Madam Mrs. Mittal. So all of you are highly welcome. So now I ask our research student, Shirata Sharma, kindly conduct proceedings, and request Dr. Mohan to release very precious lecture.
Om. Idanim
Namaskar. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Yes, you are audible, sir. You can start.
Okay.
अहं निवेदयामि डॉक्टर राजेश्वर मुखर्जी महोदयान् यते कृपया स्वव्याख्यान वचोभिः अस्मान् आप्लावयन्तु अस्मान् आशीर्वचोभिः स्वज्ञानेन परिपोषयन्तु इति डॉक्टर राजेश्वर मुखर्जी महाभागा जी।
यच्छन्दसां ऋषभो विश्वरूप छन्दोऽभ्यद्धं मृतात् सम्बभूव साम इन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रवम् ब्रह्मणो कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहिता श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Welcome to this session of the Vedanta. Let the Lion of Vedanta roars. At the very outset, I would like to express my gratefulness to Professor Surendra Mohan Mishra ji, who has kindly given me this platform to share some of my words with you. At the same time, I would like to thank my colleague Dr. Vandita Shatabati, who has connected me and given me the connection of Professor Surendra Mohan Mishra ji and got myself introduced to such a great stalwart. I am extremely delighted to be here and to deliver this message of let the Lion of Vedanta roar. Let the Lion of Vedanta roar and the foxes will fly to their holes is one of the very popular statements of Swami Vivekananda, which establishes the supremacy of Vedanta over all the other existing scriptures. It is an English rendition of the Sanskrit verse Tavad Garjanti Shastrani Jambuka Bipine Yatha Na Garjanti Shatakshepat Yavad Vedanta Keshari. All the scriptures in the garden howl unless and until the Lion of Vedanta roars. And when the Lion of Vedanta roars, the howling of all the other scriptures become overpowered by that mighty roar. So whenever we speak about the supremacy of Vedanta, the scholars, the exponents of different systems of philosophy, whether they are orthodox system, belong to the orthodox systems of philosophy, or they belong to the non-orthodox systems of philosophy, all of them will come to controvert, and at the same time they will oppose this statement and try to nullify the supremacy of Vedanta over all other scriptures. But to know the real essence of this statement, that when the Lion of Vedanta roars, the foxes fly to their holes. Vedanta is Brahma Vidya, and the foxes are the ignorance. And whenever the knowledge of Brahma Vidya dawns, the ignorance is shrunk into insignificance. To know the real essence of this, we must know the real essence of Vedanta. What do we mean by Vedanta? And why Vedanta is after our heart? Why the religion of India is the religion of Vedanta? Why Vedanta is the essence of Indian spiritual wisdom? Basically, the The Advaita Vedanta expounded by Acharya Shankara has become so popular, and the Khandana Mandana Parampara has become so popular that Vedanta is often identified with Advaita Vedanta of Acharya Shankara. But by the word Vedanta, Shankara himself did not mean Advaita Vedanta. What did he mean by Vedanta? Vedanta is Vedasanta. Vedanta is the culmination of Vedic thought process. It is the samambunam of Vedic thoughts, of Vedic wisdom. The creamy layer of Vedic wisdom is what we know by the word Vedanta. The word Anta does not mean an end, but the word Anta means the conclusion, the concluding point, the real essence of the Vedas. Vedas, as we know, they are apaurushaya, they are acausal, and they don't have any beginning or end. Writing a paper on Hinduism in the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, Swami Vivekananda says that Vedas are without beginning and without end. And he says there that how can a book be without beginning and end? If this phrase is articulated that Vedas are without beginning and without end, then it will sound ludicrous. It is something ridiculous and a ludicrous statement that Vedas are without beginning or end. He says that by Vedas we don't mean books. By Vedas we mean the knowledge which has been envisioned by the rishis at the deepest corner of their heart. It is the realization of these years which has been expressed in charming articulation. And these Vedas deal with the knowledge par excellence. It deals with both material and spiritual wisdom. Vedas are the only scriptures which always put more emphasis on spiritual knowledge, on material knowledge than on spiritual wisdom. The holistic approach to knowledge, the holistic approach to wisdom is the watchword of the Vedas. Vedas say that both material knowledge and the spiritual wisdom are necessary in our life. There is a very illuminating and enlightening introduction to Srimad Bhagavad Gita by Acharya Shankara. There he writes, Divido hi vedokta dharma, pravritti lakshana, nivitra lakshana, jagata sthiti karana. For the stability of this world, the Vedas expound about twofold nature of wisdom. One is material wisdom, material welfare, and the other is the welfare of the self. The concluding portion of the Vedas tell us that we have to transcend the material knowledge and we have to get ourselves released to the vast expanse of the wisdom of the self. Vedanta speaks about the self and self only. And in which term it should be spoken of? Because the ultimate knowledge, the supreme knowledge, is beyond the reach of mind and speech. Yado vacha nivartante aprapya manasa saha anando brahmano vidwan na vivedi kudaschaneti. The Taittiriya Upanishad says that where from the mind returns with speech, unable to get anything, that is the Brahman, that is the supreme reality. And that reality is to be realized. And that is to be realized in which form? And that is to be expressed in which form? Ultimate reality cannot be expressed in words. The ultimate reality cannot be expressed in words. It is beyond mind and speech, because mind goes there and cannot derive any information about the reality, because the mind is controlled by the self, by the Brahman, and the Brahman is not under the control of the mind. Jan manasana manute jenahu manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam jadidam upasate. That which controls the mind and is not controlled by the mind is that Brahman, and that is not the Brahman whichever we eulogize. So the ultimate reality is beyond mind and speech. We can refer to a reverential dialogue between Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and the Lord incarnate on this earth, Sri Ramakrishna. Vidyasagar was a great scholar of Indian scriptures, and he was a man of letters, whereas Ramakrishna was an illiterate priest of the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. And there was a meeting where Ramakrishna went and had a discussion with Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. On meeting Pandit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, he said that I came across different ponds, tanks, rivers, and ultimately now I meet the sea, I meet the ocean. The moment it was uttered, Vidyasagar answered that when you have come to the ocean, then you take some salted water out of it. I can only give you some salted water, because you know that the sea water is not something which can be drunk. You cannot drink sea water. We can refer to that beautiful poetry of Coleridge, where it's written, water, water everywhere, all the boats did shrink, water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. So the answer was, it was stated that whenever you have come to meet the ocean, you take the delivery of some salted water from it, which will be of no use. At this, the Lord smiled and said, why will you be the ocean of salted water? You are the ocean of knowledge, and you are not the ocean of ignorance. Therefore, you are Shira Samudra. That means you are the ocean of nectar, and we will take delivery of some nectar from you. And when this dialogue was going on, and there was one statement was given, one question was raised by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar on Brahman, on the reality. And there he spoke, there he said that, can you, sir, explain me what the Vedanta calls as Brahman? The Lord smiled and said, Brahman cannot be described by words. All the other scriptures, all the other branches of knowledge, they have become defiled with mouth. But Brahman has not become defiled with mouth. Uchishtam sarva shastrani sarva vidya mukhe mukhe na uchishto brahmano jnanam abhyaktam chetanamayam. So the knowledge of Brahman cannot be described. It is a matter of realization. It is a matter of aparakshanuvati, immediate experience. It's not pratyaksha. It's not direct perception. It's aparakshanuvati. It's immediate experience. Shakshat aparakshat Brahma, the Upanishad says. So that Vedanta deals with, the concluding portion of Vedanta deals with that supreme reality which is beyond mind and speech. And therefore, this ultimate reality cannot be described. But however, for worldly exchanges, we must have some sort of structure by which the nature of Brahman can be described. And therefore, Brahman has been described in terms of the world. Purnamada Purnamidam. That is infinite, and this world is also infinite. The world is the manifestation of the supreme reality. World is the manifestation of the self, and therefore, in the terms of this world, we can describe that Brahman. Otherwise, when you describe the Brahman, whenever you try and attempt to describe Brahman, you will have to take refuge to silence. By the words of silence, only the Brahman can be described. You know that there is a famous Dakshinamurti Stotram where it's written, Chitram Vatatarur Mule, Vriddha Shishya Gurur Yuva, Gurasto Maunam Vyakhyanam, Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya. Look under the banyan tree, seated the jubilant young Guru. Why is he jubilant? Why is he young? He is jubilant and young because he has known the reality. And surrounding that Guru are the old disciples. Whenever we speak about the word old disciples, Vriddha Shishya, so we think about the long, white, bearded people sitting around that young Guru. It's not so. Vriddha means eligible, Vriddha means knowledgeable, Vriddha means matured. So when the eligible students are surrounding the enlightened Guru, then what happens? Gurastu Maunam Vyakhyanam. The Guru expounds in the language of silence. Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya, and all the doubts of the disciples are dispelled. So that is the supreme reality which can be described only by the words of silence. Cannot be described by words. Upanishads were also unable to describe what Brahman is. It has been expressing Brahman in terms of the world. Now, by the word Vedanta, I told just now that whenever the lion of Vedanta roared, the foxes fly to their holes. Now, how the Vedanta roars and what is the nature of Vedanta? The nature of Vedanta is that of the Upanishads. Acharya Shankara himself has identified Vedanta, the word Vedanta, with the Upanishads. And what do we mean by the word Upanishads? We know that if we go to the root or the etymology of the word, we can know it in a better way. So Upanishad, Upa, Nipurbak, Shadhatu. Shadri, which means that Upanishad, Upa, Nipurbak, Shadhatu, and Shadri, Visharana, Gati, Avasadaneshu Shat. Visharana means destruction, annihilation. Gati is attainment, and Avasadana is weakening. So the texts, we don't say text, the knowledge system, the branch of knowledge, the proximity of which destroys ignorance totally and completely, is called the Upanishads. But Upanishads are the knowledge system which destroys ignorance totally and completely. Therefore, we must be in association with those texts. And there is also a popular rendering of the word Upanishad, which means to be in close association with. Gati. Gati is attainment, and attaining the association of knowledge, attaining the association of Guru. And Guru is the knower of reality. Gu shabdastu andakara, ru shabdastam nirodhaka, andakara nirodhitvat, Guru iti avidiyate. Gu represents andhakara or darkness, and Ru represents light. And it does not mean light, cessation of ignorance. And by dint of the cessation of ignorance, by the work of removing the ignorance, the man becomes a guru. And this guru explains about the knowledge of the reality. So the Upanishad is the holy association, the divine association with the guru, the divine association with your own real nature. It is the proximity of yourself. We have been sufficiently unselfish. We have been always directed towards external objects of enjoyment. We have to become inward. We have to become selfish, not in the selfish of English, but we have to become selfish in the terms of Vedanta. That means we must be directed towards ourselves. The Kathopanishad says, Paranji kani Vaitranat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Antaratman Kashid Dhira Pratyagatmanam Vaikshat Abrita Chakshu Amritatvam Vichan. So the Lord has, the Creator has, the Swayambhu has tortured on us, has tormented us by directing our senses outwardly. Tasmat parang pashyati na antaratman. They do not have the vision of the inside world. Kashit dhira means the man having dhi or buddhi, nishchayatvika buddhi. So kashit dhira pratyaka atmana maikshat. In order to have the vision of the inner self, turn their vision inside, turn their senses inside. Abrita Chakshu, Amritatvam Ichan, with a desire to attain immortality. Immortality is our goal. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. It is our journey from Mrityu to Amrita, from changeful to changeless, from relative to absolute. That is our goal of our life. To know our own real nature, and knowing our own real nature, we will become free from all the pangs and miseries of life. Shokam tarati atmavit. The knower of reality, the knower of the self, transcend grief. So this is that Shastra. Vedanta is that Shastra. Vedanta is equivalent to the Upanishads. Vedanta is not identified here with the Advaita Vedanta of Shankara or Vishishta Advaita Vedanta of Ramanujacharya or the Dvaita Vedanta of Madhvacharya or Shuddhadvaita, Shaktadvaita. It is not at all identified with that. Vedanta is Upanishad and Upanishad only. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam, the Vedanta Sara says. So by the word Vedanta, we must know that Vedanta speaks about the ultimate reality in terms of this world. But we have to go beyond this Vedanta. We have to go beyond this structured knowledge system, because the ultimate reality is beyond all sorts of fragmentary existence, beyond all sorts of structuring, beyond all sorts of worldly expression. It is akhanda, undivided whole, akhandam Satchidanandam. It is akhanda Satchidananda. And we cannot say that it is Satchidananda, but we are saying that it is Satchidananda just to express it in limited form. Satchidananda is a very, very profound word which hints at the nature of the ultimate reality, but does not suffice to represent the ultimate reality, because ultimate reality can only be realized by the self. The self can only be realized by the self, and it is an immediate experience. So Vedanta means the Upanishads, and the Upanishads takes us towards our ultimate goal. But it takes us to the threshold of the ultimate goal. The final leap is taken when this Vedanta itself is transcendent. There is a very inspiring dialogue between a king and a learned seer in Mundaka Upanishad. The king was Shaunaka, and Shaunaka was a great householder. Shaunaka Havai Mahashala. And he asked a very profound question to the learned seer, the enlightened master, the enlightened sage. Kasminnu bhagavo vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. Sir, what is that? Knowing which everything else becomes known? What is that knowing which everything else becomes known? The answer was very, very profound. Dve vidye veditabbe iti hasma yad brahma vido vadanti parachaiva aparacha. So there are two branches of learning which the knower of the reality speaks about. One is apara and the other is para. Apara is the worldly science. Sometimes we translate it in English as inferior science, lower science. It's not lower, it's relative science. Science of this relative universe. All the Vedas, they deal with, all the Vedas, the Vedangas and the Vedangas, they deal with the Aparavidya, the relative science. And we have to go beyond this. Traigunna Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunna Bhavarjuna, Nirdando Nitya Sattvastho, Niriyogakshemat Bhavan. The Vedas speaks about three gunas. But oh Arjuna, you have to go beyond the gunas, you have to transcend the gunas. So the final, what is Paravidya? Tad vijnanena paripashyanti dhira anandarupam amritam yad vibhati. That is the highest knowledge. That is the supreme knowledge. That is the knowledge of the absolute by which the world is transcended. And we know the self by the self. Anandarupam amritam yad vibhati. The Anandarupam, the supreme bliss, the immortality is known by that science which is called Paravidya. So the Vedas itself declare that they are unable to give us the supreme knowledge of the absolute, but they take us to the threshold of the knowledge, to the doorway of the knowledge. But the final leap will be taken by us by our power of yoga. Yoga is a journey, and this journey will take us to the absolute. The journey of our life has been beautifully expounded and depicted by an image in the Kathopanishad. Atmanang rathidang vidhi shariram rathamevatu buddhistu sarthim vidhi manapragrahamevacha. Indriyani hayanahu vishayasteshu gocharan atmendriya manoyukta bhaktetyahu manishina. Consider yourself to be the master of the chariot, and your body to be the chariot. So you are the master of the chariot yourself. You are not your body. You are yourself. It does not mean that you should not have a body. You have a body, but your body is your material dimension, is your relative dimension. And the truth is absolute, and the truth is yourself. So, Atmanang Rathinang Viddhi, consider yourself to be the Rathi, to be the master of the chariot. Shariram Ratham Evatu, consider your body as the Ratha or the chariot. You know, for every journey to be accomplished, you need some sort of vehicle. Therefore, yoga is often equated with yana, and we say yoga yana. Yoga yana. So this yana, you have a chariot with you. You have to complete your journey. You have to reach your supreme goal, and therefore you must have a vehicle, and the vehicle is with you, and then vehicle is your chariot. And you have the chariot with you, which is your body. So the vehicle that runs is your body. And the master of the body, master of the vehicle, the chariot is there. And now, only the vehicle will not do. You don't have sufficient time to drive that vehicle. You don't have sufficient time to propel that vehicle forward. So you need a driver. And that driver is your buddhi. Buddhistu sarathim viddhi. It is said nishayatmika buddhi. The buddhi is the determinative faculty of human being. It can discriminate between the real and the unreal. At the wake of buddhi, you will be able to discriminate between the real and the unreal. You think of the battle at Kurukshetra, where the charioteer has been the Lord. So the buddhi of Arjuna was the Lord himself, who had the faculty of discrimination between the real and the unreal, good and the evil. So this buddhi must be there, and buddhi is your chariot. But how this buddhi, or rather we can say that buddhi is our intuitive faculty. Our mind has two faculty. One is the rational faculty, and the other is the intuitive faculty. And that intuitive faculty is buddhi. And this buddhi is to be sharpened. Without the sharpening of buddhi, you cannot excel in your life. You cannot reach your goal. You can reach your ultimate goal. You cannot transcend your grief if you don't sharpen your buddhi. Eka sarva bhuteshu gudha atmana prakashate drishyate tu agraya buddhya shukshmaya shukshmadarshi. Sarva bhuteshu gudha atma, the self which is hidden within every being. The self is within every object of this universe. Within every object of this universe, the self is permeated. Gudha. It is embedded, it is permeated, it is hidden within every object of this universe. Aham atma gudhakesha sarva bhutashaya sthita. I am the self residing in every object of this universe. I am the self residing in every object of this universe. The self is there, and it is residing in every object of this universe. We have to discover this self. Or we can say Ishavassamidam Sarvam, which I will come to you later. The unchanging self is permeated in every object of this universe, but we, due to ignorance, are unable to discriminate between the unchanging self and the changeful world. And therefore, we seek the intervention of buddhi, and buddhi can give us the decision that whichever is real and whichever is unreal. But how does the buddhi control? Buddhi should control. It should control. What should it control? That is a different thing. But it should control. What should it control? Now I will tell you another thing. Now you have different steam engines, different engines which are the storehouse of energy for the vehicles. Without engine, you cannot move. And the engines, every engine has horsepowers. Without horsepower, there is an engine will cease to be an engine. Therefore, there are 10 horses. And those horses are the horsepowers which propel the chariot forward, which are our indriyas, which are our senses. And this connection between the buddhi and the senses is done by dint of something which is called mind. Manapragrahamevacha. But what is this mind? The mind is a bridle. The mind is a bridle or the reins by which the horses are to be controlled. The senses are the horses and the mind controls, and the charioteer or the buddhi controls the horses with the help of that mind. Manapragrahamevacha. This mind is very difficult to control. And the entire journey of yoga or the entire system of yoga is devoted to the control of mind. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of mental modifications. Yoga is the cessation of thought waves. So the chitta vritti is there and it needs to be controlled. So mind requires to be controlled. And how do you control the mind? A very beautiful prescription has been given by Lord in Srimad Bhagavatam. Arjuna says, Chanchalang hi mana Krishna pramathi balabadradham tasyaham nigraham manne bayoriva suduskaram. Chanchalang hi mana Krishna pramathi balabadradham. You see, oh Krishna, the mind is so restless. It is, and it stimulates the senses, and it is very difficult to catch hold of that mind. And catching hold of that mind is as difficult as catching hold of the air in palm. And the Lord says, Ashamshayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Konteya Vairagyena Chakriyate. Vairagyena Chakriyate. So by vairagya, by abhyasa, the constant practice and renunciation, by constant practice and renunciation is non-attachment, we can control our mind. Tatra sthito yadna abhyasa. To be in the state of concentration, we must practice, and that practice is called abhyasa. So the mind controls. So the mind controls the senses. And now look at the senses. The senses are your horsepowers for the journey. Without these senses, your journey will not be accomplished. Simulate a situation where all your horses are dislodged from the chariot. And when the horses are dislodged from the chariot, there will be no motion and there will be no progress because there is no horsepower. And if the horses are lazy, your journey will not be fruitful. Your journey will not be successful. Your journey will not be pleasant. And if they are weak, again they cannot give you a good output. And therefore, we must appease the senses to an optimum level. And then we must have a control over it. Control means moderation. Control does not mean an extreme. Perfection does not mean an extreme, but maintaining a balance. Sri Aurobindo says, perfection does not mean an extreme, but maintaining a balance. And by this balanced treatment on these horses, we can start our journey. And this journey will take us to our highest goal. Vishayasteshu gocharan, and we know that the road towards that goal is are, are, are full of objects of desire, objects of enjoyment. And you, with your body and mind, is the enjoyer of it. But what is our ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to reach the state of, reach the highest abode of knowledge. Jad gatvana nivartante tad dhamam paramam mama. That is my highest abode where from there is no return. There is no return to the world of grief. There is no return to the world of transmigration. There is no return to the world of ignorance. So this is the journey, and journey of the self by the self. Uddharet atmanatmanang natmanang avasadet atmano hi atmana bandhu atmaiva ripuratmana. So you must try to excel yourself by yourself, and don't degrade yourself by yourself. Because your self is your highest enemy, the self is your highest friend, greatest friend. So that journey is to be accomplished, and it will take us to the highest goal, and that highest goal is the state of Satchidananda, that is absolute bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. Now I told you that these words Satchidananda is expressed to express the supreme reality in limited form, because ultimate reality is beyond expression. Now, what is Sat? What is Chit? What is Ananda? Are these the three aspects of all life? Are these the three attributes of the Brahman? Shankara says no. Shankara explains the word Satchidananda. Of course, we must know that the word Satchidananda is not contained in any of the principal Upanishads. We know there are 10 plus 1 principal Upanishads. Shetashwata, there is a confusion about the Shetashwata Upanishad, whether it has been commented on by Shankara or not, and therefore it is not added up with the remaining Upanishads. So there are 10 plus 1 principal Upanishads. And this principle, and the word Satchidananda cannot be found in any of the principal Upanishads. You will find the word Satchidananda in the minor Upanishads. Of course, they are also very profound. Some of the minor Upanishads are very profound. Although they are minor Upanishads, they are not the principal Upanishads, but they are very, very profound. The Amritavindu Upanishad or the Nrsimhatapani Upanishad, they use the word Satchidananda, which has been explained by Shankara in a very profound way, very insightful way. Shankara asks the question, Sat Kim? What is Sat? What is Sat? We know if we translate this word Sat Chit Ananda, the Sat means absolute existence, Chit means absolute consciousness, and Ananda means absolute bliss. Absolute existence, absolute consciousness, absolute bliss. And this Satchidananda is of the nature of your own self. This is the tech of Vedanta, that it is the nature of your own self. So absolute existence plus absolute consciousness plus absolute bliss. So these three, do they constitute the nature of Brahman? Shankara explains Shat Kim. What is Sat? Sat is not something which is existent. Sat is that which is existence. Which is existence itself. It does not exist. It is the existence. Without the existence, there cannot we exist, but the ultimate reality is the existence. There is an episode in the Christian mythology where it is said that God asks Moses to save his brethren and said that go and save your brethren. Moses says, when I go there, they will ask me, if they ask me what should be my answer, that who has sent me there? If they ask me who has sent you, what should be my answer? He said, the God said that you tell them that I have sent you to save you. Sorry, to save them. I have sent you to save them. But if they ask that who you are, the Lord said, tell them, I am who am. I am who am. I am is the pre-be verb. I am is the existence. I do not exist. I am the existence absolute. I was the existence in the past. I am existence. I am the existence at present. I will be the existence in future. So I am beyond birth and death. I am the absolute existence. I am the supreme reality. Ajo api san nabbayatma bhutanam ishvaro api san prakritim swam avashtavya sambhavami atma maya. Ajo api san nabbayatma, although I am ajo, I am beyond birth. If I am beyond birth, I will be beyond death. One who takes birth only dies. So, ajo bhi, although I am unborn, I am the Lord of the universe. I am the undecaying self. I am the Lord of this universe. Prakritim swam avashtavya sambhavami atma maya. I get hold of my prakriti and I manifest myself with the help of of my cosmic power, which is called Maya. So again we come to the Shankara's explanation that Sat Kim, he writes Chit Swarupaha. What is Sat? What is absolute existence? The answer, without giving answer, he puts another jargon called Chit. What is Sat? What is absolute existence? It is of the nature of absolute consciousness. So we do not know what is meant by absolute consciousness. So how do we understand that what is absolute existence? So what is absolute consciousness? We must know what absolute consciousness is. So what is absolute existence? Absolute existence is absolute consciousness. Shankara says, what is Sat Kim? What is Sat? Chit Swarupa. Now what is Chit? Chit is Swayam Prakasha. Swayam Prakasha means that which is able to reveal itself without the aid of any external agency. That which is able to express itself without the help of any agency. That is Chit. That light which is revealed without any agency is called Chit. Only the consciousness can reveal itself, and all the inanimate object can reveal itself only when it is authenticated or certified by the self, by the consciousness. The mobile phone cannot stand and say, I exist. But a human being can stand and say, I exist. Why? Because it has a greater manifestation of consciousness, and the mobile phone has a very feeble manifestation of consciousness. So this manifestation of consciousness is the nature of Chit. Chit can reveal itself. But Shankara, if you ask Shankara, Chit Kim, if you say Sat Kim, it says Chit Sarupaha. When it says Chit Kim, then what should he answer? He answers Ananda Swarupaha. So Ananda is equal to Chit is equal to Sat. So it is not Sat plus Chit plus Ananda. It is Sat is equal to Chit is equal to Ananda. So whatever is Sat that is only Chit, and that can be called as Ananda. So what is Ananda? Ananda is the highest form of prosperity. It is the highest level of prosperity beyond which man cannot prosper. It is the highest form of prosperity beyond which man cannot prosper. That is the Ananda. Shankara writes, Sukha Sarupa. What is Ananda? Ananda kim? Sukha Sarupa. It is of the nature of bliss. It is of the nature of happiness. And that happiness is your eternal happiness. Everything in this world is born out of this Ananda. That is sustained in Ananda will be ultimately dissolved in Ananda. Ananda is the basic substratum. Ananda is the support of this existence. Ananda dhaiva khulu imani bhutani jayante anandena jatani jivanti jat prayanti abhisham vishanti. So that is Ananda. We have come from we are not born out of sin. We are born out of Ananda. The Ananda has given birth to this body. And that Ananda is the manifestation of the supreme Ananda, which is the bliss. Raso Vaisa, the Upanishad says. And Rasa is also equivalent to Ananda. So Ananda is the supreme reality, Rasa is the supreme reality, and Vedanta speaks about the supreme reality. And whenever we know the supreme reality, we become the reality ourselves. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of reality becomes the reality himself. And whenever you know the reality, whenever you yourself discover that you are the reality, you are the Sat, you are the Chit, you are the Brahman, you are the Satchidananda, you are Satyam, you are Jnanam, you are Anandam, then there will be no fear. There will be no pangs and miseries. There will be no confusion. There will be no doubt. Vidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva sanshaya shyante chak assa karmani tasmin drishte paravare. When you know parayanavara, when you know this relative world and the absolute world, then all the knots are broken. The bondage becomes weak. And all the doubts are dispelled. You yourself exist in your own real nature. The yoga says, Tadadrashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. You can have only two alternatives. One is Tadadrashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. And the other, that means you are either established in your own self, or vritti sarupyam itaratra, or you identify yourself with the vrittis or the modifications. Whenever you identify yourself with the modifications, whenever you identify yourself with the vrittis, whenever you identify yourself with the relative world, you start suffering in your life. Because all these are the product of ignorance. Ignorance is the ignorance of the self. Ignorance means to treat the world as the reality, as the absolute reality. Of course, world is reality. World is not an illusion. It cannot be illusion. It is something relative. World which impinges so much on us cannot be something which is called illusion. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Here Mithya does not mean that it is absolute non-existence. It is relative existence. What is absolute non-existence? There are some specimens given. There are some examples given in our Shastra. We are moving towards the conclusion. So, about the absolute non-existence, there are some examples in the Shastras, in our scriptures. What are they? मृगतृष्णां भसि स्नातो खपुष्प धृतशेखर एष बंधा पुत्र याति शशशृंग धनुर्धर. Mrigatrishnam bhasi snata. So one has taken bath in the water of the mirage. You know, mirage is an illusion. You cannot, it does not have any sort of existence. Mrigatrishnam bhasi snata. Khapushpa dhrita shekhara, and crowned with the sky flower. You cannot get flower in the sky, so there cannot be anything which is called sky flower. Esha Bandhaputra Yati. So the Bandhaputra, the son of a barren woman, is going now. There cannot be anyone who is born out of a barren woman. Therefore, it is also an illusion. But Shashasringa Dhanurdhara, it is born out, he is a bowman who is Dhanurdhara, who has designed his bow out of the horn of a rabbit. There is no horn of a rabbit, so there cannot be such a bow, and there cannot be such a bowman. So these are the absolute non-existence. But the world is not an absolute non-existence, because it is so tangible, it is so palpable, it impinges so much on us, it cannot be. And the Shastra says, Shad Ashad Vilakshanatvam. Why it is mithya? Because it is neither real nor unreal, or both real and unreal. You can say it is neither real nor unreal, or both real and unreal. So mithya, the world, is something which is relative, which is ephemeral, which is transient, and the ultimate reality is the source of everything. It sustains the world, and whenever you discover your own real nature, the knowledge of the world will mature in the knowledge of the Brahman. The beautiful image of snake and the rope has been given by the Advaitins. Whenever you see a snake in a rope, you are scared. Whenever you are scared, the snake had its existence because you were scared. But this existence is phenomenal existence and not ultimate existence, not absolute existence. Because when the light is focused on that rope, the knowledge of the rope is revealed and the knowledge of the snake goes. So now you see the absolute, you have the absolute knowledge of the rope. So the snake and the rope, they cannot be seen together. Either you see the snake or you see the rope. When you see the snake is real. And whenever you see the rope is real. So the knowledge of the snake is sublated, and the knowledge of the knowledge of the snake is sublated, and the knowledge of the rope dawns. And you discover the reality as absolute. You discover the reality as the absolute existence, as the absolute consciousness, as the absolute bliss. And you experience at the very core of your heart, Kwa Gatam, Kenava Linam, Kenava Nitam, Kutra Linam Vidam Jagat, Adhunaiva Maya Trishtam, Nastikim Mahatputam. Kwa Gatam, where it has been, he has gone. Who has taken it away? Where this world is dissolved. Just now I have seen the world. Where it is God. Is it not something wonderful? Yes, the self is wonderful because the knowledge of the world matures in the knowledge of the self. Thank you.
धन्यवादः महोदय। वयं
स्वागतम्।
अत्यन्तं गौरवं सौभाग्यं च अनुभवामः। वयं सौभाग्यशालिनः भवद्भिः अत्र प्रेरिताः वेदान्तविषये, पुनश्च अस्माकं नित्यजीवने याः अपि स्थितयः भवन्ति तासामपि किञ्चित् अत्र अनुशीलनं भवद्भिः कृतम्। इदानीं
न श्रोतुं शक्नोमि. You are not audible,
Oh.
sir.
So it's now open to any kind of queries, suggestions. Dr. Mukherjee has done a great job, a good introduction to Swami Vivekananda and what he thought of this world to be like, and the roaring lion that, and also the roaring lion that Swami Vivekananda, who actually transformed the whole tradition of Vedanta into making it practical for a greater India and also a greater human world. So, and that he did in Chicago and so many other foreign locales. And then he wrote also profusely on our Shastra tradition. He was a knower of Sanskrit. Dr. Mukherjee knows Sanskrit so well. So also Swami Vivekananda, he knew Sanskrit to the core of his heart. Even he penned verses, and with the same verses, every day he worshipped his own guru, that is Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Deva. So that way, if you find his poems in English also, in Bangla also, you can also find so many Sanskrit poems of him in Swami Vivekananda sightings. So if you want to know deeply we want to know Vivekananda deep, and we have to know also the Sanskrit Vedanta. Vedanta. Shankar, he quoted from many Upanishads, and this was a great experience to be with him in this lecture. And we must know how Shankara, he is a Nirbishesha Dvaita, or Kevala Dvaita, Brahma Dvaita, and then how our own times he puts them into, you can say, the idea of the concept of practical Vedanta. And the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra, Bhashya Shankara, he takes all the three, and he and Swami Ramatirtha, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Raju, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, his name, and persons on the way whenever it comes to Indian actually has depicted as it's not the Advaita, it's the conclusion of the way. If you know how you have to practice actually, so our Vedanta is our fourth shastra. We our pattern education that is linguistics. So after knowing linguistics, we go for Pramana Shastra, that is Tarka, me of Tarka, and then the fourth Shastra is Vedanta. Whether it is Advaita Vedanta, Visishta Advaita, he also told about Visishta Advaita, whether it is Dvaita, Dvaita, Advaita, it's Suddha. this out and out differently. So the Upanishads
Om.
So Upanishads actually, they are like the matrix, the mother of all our knowledge in India. So the Upanishads have been all physical systems, all the thinking system, all the sciences in India. The Upanishads cited Vedas because they need to practice in our life. Now, participants, when the participants, the young participants, because the whole Vedanta process is questions and answers, questions and answers. They're in dialogical form. There are dialogues. And say Kathopanishad that is quoted from, and Kathopanishad is a dialogue between Yama, the teacher, and Nachiketa, the student, Krishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda. And there, at one point, Yama tells Nachiketa, okay, I'm so happy with you. Swadrigno bhuyat Nachiketa. O Nachiketa, questioners, that you should be available to questioning to cannot give his knowledge. So the students have to know how to formulate a question, how to ask a question, how to make a suggestion. And put up very good discussion too. Thank you. Please to ask some questions. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, yes. Now I can hear.
Ji. There is a question in our chat box.
Yes, yes. Yes, please carry on. Hmm. I am unable to hear. Hello?
You can't hear now?
Yes, I can
Hello?
hear. Yes, now I can
Okay. Ravi Datta, yes. Tell the chat question.
Hello.
Yes, yes, please tell me.
From
Could not be heard.
hello.
Yes, yes, please.
Ji.
बोलिए।
The question is, can pravritti and nivritti go simultaneously? क्या प्रवृत्ति और निवृत्ति दोनों एक साथ हो सकते हैं जी?
Yes, yes, I'll tell you. We should start our journey with pravritti, because pravritti is human nature. Fulfilling the pravritti, we have to transcend the pravritti, and we have to adopt nivritti. So it's just a process of pravritti to nivritti is a process of transformation. It's not giving up the pravritti. It is not renouncing the pravritti, but pravritti must be fulfilled and filled up, and pravritti is to be transcended. And whenever we totally transcend pravritti, we will be established in our real nature. But our journey should not or cannot initiate with nivritti. Yuktahara, can you hear me? Hello? Yukta, can you hear me? Yuktahara viharasya yukta chashtasya karmasu yukta sapnabodhasya yoga bhavati dukkha. The Lord says, you know, this is the Smriti Prasthana of Vedanta. And the Lord says there, Yukta Ahara, your diet must be balanced, both in quantity and quality. Your enjoyment and pleasure and recreation must also be moderate. I told you, I have given you the image of horses. The horses are to be appeased to the extent of moderation. So Vihara, the enjoyment must be there, but that also gratification of senses must be there, but that should be under control. The wakefulness and sleep both must be under control. And if they can be controlled properly, then control means filling up and going beyond. Control means moderation. Control means balance. Then we attain the state of yoga, which is called the cessation of all sorrows, yoga bhavati dukkha. And it is said in the previous verse by the Lord that one who eats too much or takes too less food, or one who sleeps much, or one who goes for less sleep cannot be a yogi. Because initially it is a journey from pravritti to nivritti. Fulfilling the pravritti, we have to get ourselves released in the world of nivritti. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, these are the chaturveda purushartha. And therefore, the process of transformation is from pravritti to nivritti.
Question from the same questioner.
It was, could you please explain Satchidananda? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So here one question is blinking here, that it was explained by you. Could you explain more about Sat Chit Ananda? It is Sat Chit Ananda.
Yes. Ji.
Sat Chit Ananda is the ultimate knowledge, but I told you that ultimate knowledge is beyond mind and speech. Ultimate knowledge cannot be expressed in articulation. We cannot explain the ultimate wisdom. Therefore, we have tried to explain the ultimate reality in terms of the worldly language. And one is Sat, other is Chit, and the third is Ananda. I have already told you that Sat Chit Ananda is not contained in any one of the principal Upanishads, but a corresponding expression is there in the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is called Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So Satyam can be mapped with Sat, Satyam can be mapped with Sat, knowledge Jnanam can be mapped with Chit, and Anandam can be mapped with Ananda. So we are not only moving towards the world of Ananda, but we are moving towards the world of infinity. And infinity cannot be dual, because there cannot be any duality in infinity, because if there are two infinities, then one infinity will make the other infinite, because ultimate reality then is one without a second. It is infinite, it is infinity, it is eternal, and it is one without a second. It is the sole existence, not of the world, only the existence itself. Next question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Next question I can see in the chat box is going off. From see how to introduce this supreme knowledge in our education system. What could be the pragmatic approach to Advaita philosophy for us today? The first is all the systems of knowledge ultimately wend towards the knowledge of the self, because it has been said that the relative knowledge must be cultivated. It is essential part of our life, because without the cultivation of the worldly knowledge, we cannot know the real nature of the self. Andham tama pravishanti ye avidyam upasasate tato bhuya eva tama yau vidyayam rata. Yau vidyayam rata. Therefore, the man who only inquires into the absolute or the supreme reality enters into a greater darkness than the person who inquires only into the knowledge of the relative universe. So a person only concentrating on the only concentrating into the relative universe, a person who only concentrates on the relative universe is deluded, and the person who concentrates on only the spiritual wisdom is more deluded. Therefore, vidyam cha jastad veda ubhayam saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritam shrute. So there should be a coexistence, there should be a joint cultivation of both worldly wisdom and the wisdom of the self. And now the central government has taken, or the different government agencies have taken a great measure in promoting the yoga, and yoga is the wisdom of the self, wisdom about the self. Therefore, if the ordinary sciences can be coupled with yogic wisdom, then we can have a very balanced system of education in our country, which was there prevailing in our ancient times. And how pragmatic approach to Advaita philosophy for us today has been given by Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda told nothing new, but he has only made a restatement of the words of Upanishads in practical terms, in the idioms of modern science. In the idioms of modern science. And there he said he has very much patronized and promoted karma yoga, seeing the self in everybody and serving for them, or the bhakti yoga or the raja yoga, and they can be they are nothing but ultimately they all lead to the ultimate goal, which is called Advaita. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Swayan Rabbamayad Yagyat Jnana Yagya Parantapa Sarva Karma Khilam Partha Jnane Parisamapyate.
Thanks to introduce the relevance of Vedanta in modern era. So, if anyone has any question, then you can ask now, or any query, suggestion, remarks. Welcome for you.
All the doubts will be cleared only when the knowledge of the ultimate reality will dawn at your heart.
Of course, yes.
Doubts will continue to remain, and so long that doubts we are not realized, we are existent, we are worldly. Once all the doubts are cleared, we are established in our own real nature.
Absolutely right, sir. Yes, yes. गुरवः अपि समापयितुं शक्यते इदानीं कल्याणमन्त्रेण. ओम.
The questions are answered, and are there more questions in the chat box? No. So actually, he concluded with this. This just I supplement. Chidyate hridaya granthi vidyate sarva samsaya siyante jasya karmani tasmin drishti paravrit. At the end of the Kathopanishad, the way he was answering, I was remembering that thing, that yada sarve pramuchyante kama yesya hridhi sitaha athamartyong amrito bhavati atra brahma samasnute yada sarve prabhidyante hridayasyeha granthaya athamartyo amrito bhavati etavad dhanusasanam. Vedanta can teach up to a certain point, then Vedanta will go back, and the student, he has to practice, and finally he will land in such a no desires land, in that land of Niskama Karma Yoga, as told by Sri Krishna in the Upanishads, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that Niskama Karma Yoga, and what is natural phala, Advesta Sarva Bhutanang Maitra Karuna Evacha, etc. in the Bhagavad Gita, they are the natural fallout of Vedantic life. So that Vedantic life, if we have, then we don't have wars. We have ill. We have a divided people. We the people, even not we the people of India, we the people of the globe, or in the whole universe. Anywhere we are one, and this oneness of humanity, this oneness of the whole existence, that is Satchit Ananda. And this thing actually very nicely through Swami Vivekananda, through Shankara, through the Upanishads, through the Bhagavad Gita, his own experience, and all the things that he has told today are of great benefit to us, because it's the land of the Bhagavad Gita, and he is speaking from the land of yoga. And so we are highly thankful to him, and we wish after the Corona times are better, then he should once come to Kurukshetra, and we can also go to that place where actually Swami Vivekananda got his name from the king of Khetri. So that place is a great place, and in for Swami Vivekananda, 2 rooms are also were constructed there, and he stayed there for the overnight. So that great place. From there, Mr. Sudhir Bhargav is with us. So he knows. And Swami Vivekananda, without Swami Vivekananda in modern times, for the contemporary people and society, we cannot understand Shankara's Vedanta or Vyasa's Vedanta, the Brahma Sutras. So that way, Vyasa's Brahma Sutras journey up to Swami Vivekananda. So this actually, this was the topic of which is the Vedanta lion roars, and actually Vedanta is a lion, and Swami Vivekananda is a lion. Before Swami Vivekananda passed away, he was asking for why just loitering around, walking around, back and forth, that hundreds of Vivekanandas, and the world becomes revolutionized. Actually, these 100 Vivekanandas perhaps would not come after him, so the world remains unrevolutionized. So it's a call to the youth of India and the world that let some young people be Swami Vivekanandas, at least fulfill a part of Swami Vivekananda, so that India and the whole world, as they're suffering through these bad times, even warmongering times, perhaps Swami Vivekananda's words come as a kind of direction for us, a kind of instruction for us from Vedanta, from spirituality, from the womb of spirituality. Our statecraft is born, and India is known for that. So with these words, I thank Dr. Mukherjee. We are so very happy that he has been mentally and through his voice in Kurukshetra and speaking to us, and many listeners, participants who are participating from different states and also from Haryana and Kurukshetra, students and teachers and retired professors. So all of the people, researchers. So I thank all the listeners also and all the participants, and actually Dr. Bandita also, who actually made my acquaintance with Dr. Mukherjee. I am so happy that he belongs to such a great yoga institute, perhaps the only yoga institute in our country where scientific instruments are there to quantify the results that are yielded by the yogic practices. And there are also places where people can go and stay. So I ask of all of us, whenever time permits, all of us can go sometime, and that heavenly atmosphere, that yogic atmosphere, where even some sannyasins are there, so we can be in Kaivalya Dhama. And Kaivalya means mukti, is a true emancipation. While you are mukta, then actually you can do the worldly activities better. That is what is exemplified by the character of Janaka, Rama, Krishna, and so many other people. Buddha, because unless you are emancipated, unless you are mukta, you are not a proper worker, not an ideal worker. So the concept of ideal worker in Swami Vivekananda's practical Vedanta is to be liberated and then work for the world. He perhaps got this idea also from the Siddhanta Bodhisattva. So that way Swami Vivekananda, we must read him, and the young people must read Swami Vivekananda to actually know all the facts pertaining to the contemporary realization of Vedanta and the need of Vedanta for the great country like India. Vedanta can actually make us great as a great Rashtra, and this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Vedanta is our true voice, and through Vedanta, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda, we can march ahead to make the whole world really cultured, really civilized, and really good to the whole world. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. And then Ravi Datta will conclude with Kalyana Mantra.
Om. सर्वेषां हार्दं धन्यवादान् इदानीम् अहं विज्ञाप्य कल्याणमन्त्रेण अस्य व्याख्यानस्य समापनं करोमि। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ
शांति शांति शांति।
ओम नमः सर्वेभ्यः, नमो गुरुभ्यः।
नमः
ओम।
ओम नमः सर्वेभ्यः।